Upon turning off the refrigerator and hearing my heart pause in the ensuing quiet, no alarm or commotion preceded it. The day was unexceptional, a scorching July Thursday. I returned home from a client installation on the west side, fatigued, sunburnt, eager to relax. As I entered the house, I detected lavender. Not the scent of candles, but soap, a fragrance foreign to me. It wasn't my wife's typical aroma. She usually opts for sandalwood or citrus. This smell was saccharine and lingering, suggesting intimacy. I ambled into the kitchen, my laptop bag still in hand, and found her phone glowing on the countertop. There it sat, screen aglow, unlocked, a message wide open like a harsh slap across the face. Meet again tomorrow? I miss you already. Only a number was shown, but she rarely employs emojis with me, not for years. Our messages are lists of groceries, reminders of bills, instructions to let the dog out. I'll be late. Gazed at it, my limbs motionless. My breathing remained constant. A strange sensation enveloped me, as if my mind had slipped on an invisible sheet of ice and plunged into an unfamiliar abyss. I made no attempt to touch the phone, nor did I utter a sound. I simply stood there until the screen went blank again, as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. Then I heard her voice, echoing from upstairs, singing a tune from the playlist she compiled last fall, labeled Wine and Light. The one she usually played only when she was alone. Or apparently not. Each step on the staircase felt heavier than the preceding one. The guest room door stood slightly ajar, revealing her within, in front of the mirror, adorning a clip to her hair and clad in the silk pajama set I gifted her 3 years ago for our anniversary, which she had not worn for over a year. Humming softly, she was barefoot, carefree, with everything in the room perfectly arranged. I chose not to enter, instead making my way to the bedroom, settling on the bed's edge and fixating on the framed photograph of us from Key West. Dear friends, if you enjoy this story, please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. In her tortoiseshell shades, clutching an icy beverage, flashing a smile as if I was the universe's sole male inhabitant. 10 minutes elapsed before she entered. She placed a peck on my scalp, mentioning she intended to procure sushi. Laura would pick me up, her tone suggesting this was non-negotiable, as if she expected me not to question it. I remained silent until she departed. Upon hearing the front door latch, I descended the stairs. The phone was missing. That evening, I performed an action I hadn't undertaken in years. I uncorked a bottle of whiskey and poured 2 measures straight up, not out of necessity, but in search of insight. I gazed into the glass, hoping it might impart hidden truths. Jessica returned later, treading softly, assuming I was asleep. I overheard the shower, the soft thud of her robe dropping to the floor, and her slipping into bed without uttering a word. That instance solidified it for me. The following day, over coffee, she confronted me directly. I've decided to go on a solo trip next month, just a weekend to clear my thoughts. I gave an acknowledging nod, and she smiled before saying, "Speak with you tomorrow." She left the house then. This time, instead of waiting for nightfall, I called my lawyer instead. I spent that entire night awake, listening to her peaceful breathing beside me. The tranquility of it all made my skin crawl. A peculiar madness seems to infiltrate your mind when the person who shares your bed is tearing apart your life while you struggle in silence. By morning, a hardened part of me had set, and I decided not to question her, snoop, or investigate within my own home. I would feign ignorance instead. I'd let her think I was still the oblivious, quiet, overly trusting husband she believed she married. Now the game was hers. When I reached the living room, she was already dressed. Jeans that hugged tightly, lipstick marking her smile, the same scent of lavender wafting once more. She hummed a familiar melody, seemingly intent on inflicting pain. "I'll be at the cafe all morning," she declared, snatching her keys and draining the last of her coffee. "Meeting Laura for brunch." I responded with a smile, adding, "Give my regards to Laura." This seemed to momentarily halt her steps. A fleeting expression passed over her face. Not remorse. Jessica wasn't that kind. It was more like annoyance at my recalling the name. She nodded and departed, the door closing with a resounding bang, as if a gavel had been struck. I waited 5 minutes, then unlocked my laptop. The number from the text message lingered in my memory. I compared it with the invoice from our shared phone plan, which I had the access to since she hadn't altered the password. The number had dialed her 12 times in the past week, not exceeding 5 minutes, always between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m., long enough for a hushed conversation and farewell. I traced the number, a burner phone. Naturally, the area code was local. Thus, whoever it was, they weren't far away. At that moment, I made a decision I had never contemplated before. I called in a favor from an old college friend who worked in private security, someone I had helped secure a job a few years prior. I provided him the number and simply said, "Just provide a name." In 3 hours, he came back with a name, Blake Anders. The name didn't resonate, but then he mentioned that he was a trainer, working at the new gym off Lincoln, Deli Corp. He drives a white Dodge Charger. I had noticed it around before. Everything became clear. The gym membership she signed up for 2 months ago, the unexpected interest in fitness, the lengthy sessions and aching muscles that didn't correlate with her described workouts, the tan lines, the frequent showers, all pieces of a puzzle that fell into place. I didn't even need to ask if he was married. I already knew he wasn't. This man wasn't hiding. He was replacing. Later that day, I tracked her down. It may seem pitiful, but let me explain. I had to observe it for myself. I needed to eradicate that lingering doubt within me, like pulling a troublesome tooth. As I watched, she parked in a shopping center, 2 blocks from the cafe she claimed was her destination. She didn't enter the storefront. Instead, she walked to the back and slipped through a side door. 17 minutes later, Blake emerged, bare-chested and grinning. I remained motionless in my car with windows rolled up and the air conditioning on, observing. My heart raced. 48 minutes passed before she reappeared, unchanged in attire but brimming with a different energy. She radiated light. That evening, when she stepped into the house, I was chopping vegetables for a stir-fry in the kitchen, composed like a man preparing his last meal on death row. She leaned against the fridge and asked, "Cooking?" I glanced up. "Should I open wine?" I suggested casually. "Open the Cabernet," she replied, echoing her earlier words verbatim. "Contact me tomorrow." You picked up the glass, examined it, met her gaze squarely. "I've done that already," I replied. She paused, barely noticeable, a heartbeat's worth. Then she chuckled, but it was hollow. However, her eyes had already revealed something different. Everything that followed was as if witnessing a tower crumbling in reverse. I remained still, neither blinking nor smiling. My expression didn't change. I simply held her gaze, feeling the burden of those 4 words fill the space between us, thick and heavy like fog. "I've already done it," I echoed, softer this time, as if the sentence itself was sacrosanct. Jessica's visage didn't immediately falter. She was too skilled for that. She had years of training, instincts born from alibis. At first, she chuckled again, but it lacked its previous charm, becoming sharp and brittle around the edges. "You're acting strange," she retorted, turning away as if we hadn't just tread on a fault line. "What do you mean by that?" I set down the knife, not violently, just enough for the sound of metal against stone to pierce her words. I phoned my attorney, at which point a hint of her smile faltered, a mere twitch, like a candle struggling before it goes out. Her hand halted in midair as she reached for the wine bottle. I observed her shoulders tense up. "What's this about?" she inquired. "Still pretending ignorance, still trying to steer us back to safety. I trailed you today," I stated, maintaining a steady tone. "You weren't at the cafe." Her breath caught once, briefly. However, that single instance was sufficient. She attempted another tactic, abruptly veering into feigned outrage. "Are you genuinely serious right now? You're spying on me." "I didn't have to. You're careless. You parked 2 blocks away from where you claimed you'd be, circumnavigated the back of a building with a man who's been phoning you every evening for weeks. Are you going through my phone now?" Her tone was more forceful, protective, but I could see the fissures widening. "No, just perusing what surfaced while you were upstairs humming to yourself." At that point, the tone shifted. As if prepared for a speech, her mouth opened, yet what emerged wasn't a lie, but an error. A smirk graced her lips. "All right," she stated coldly, her voice dropping as if a switch had been flipped. "So what? You're suddenly the victim? After abandoning me in this marriage? After I spent years struggling while you were engrossed in work, gadgets, and other things?" She revealed her trump card. Blame. A deflection so swift it could cause whiplash. I remained unfazed. I had anticipated this response. I listened. "You can't pretend to be the martyr now," she continued. You made me feel insignificant for so long, Mark. I tried. I truly did. But you were never really present. She mentioned his name, aloud, as if intending to hurt me with it, as if boasting. It worked, but not in the way she intended. I simply stared at her, because that was when everything became crystal clear. Not solely about the affair or Blake, but rather Jessica. A woman who opted for deceit and tried to use it as a shield. A woman who refused to acknowledge her actions without retaliating against mine. You matter, I repeated. Jessica, you matter so much that I've been sustaining this marriage single-handedly while you were living as a couple with a fitness enthusiast. Now she seemed trapped. For an instant, I noticed something that might have been remorse. However, it vanished swiftly, replaced by spite. You want to leave? She said, her voice harsh now, lips pressed tight. Do it. You're not some rare treasure, Mark. You think I was the only one drifting? Please, you stopped being a spouse a long time ago. I didn't speak up. She moved nearer. You desire to depart? Then leave. But don't act as if you're the innocent one. You never saw me. Not once. With that, she spun away, poured herself another drink of wine, and strode into the living room as if she hadn't just destroyed a decade of shared existence. I stood in the kitchen, allowing the quiet to permeate, enduring the chill. The house seemed altered now. It felt compact and vacant, despite her still being inside. That night, I neither packed nor slept. For in the dawn, I wouldn't be here anymore. The morning was leisurely, as if time were granting me a last farewell before all fell apart. I moved unhurriedly, saying nothing. I traversed the house as if it no longer belonged to me, as if I were borrowing moments in a place already inhabited by spirits. Jessica lay sleeping, spread out on the bed as if she hadn't unleashed a bomb the night before, her robe half open, lips slightly parted, no signs of remorse etched on her face, only tranquility. Such peace doesn't stem from reconciliation. It emerges from detachment. Perhaps she had been absent for quite some time already. I bathed, dressed, and packed 2 bags, only the necessities. My belongings included garments, laptop, office documents, and an envelope containing bank records printed 2 days prior. I ensured a quiet departure. There was just the soft sound of a closing zipper. At 7:42 a.m., I exited the front door without a glance back. I didn't visit my siblings nor contacted a friend. Instead, I reserved a room at a modest hotel with thin walls and no view, a place typically occupied by those transitioning lives. The bed was rigid, and the air conditioner clicked as if revealing a secret. I sat on the bed holding my phone, awaiting a 9 a.m. call from my lawyer. I had my case details prepared: facts, dates, call logs, text timestamps, a list of shared assets. Additionally, I had Blake Anders' gym name, his apartment address, and GPS logs screenshots that my friend obtained. However, before dialing, I browsed through her wedding photographs. Admittedly, I shouldn't have done that. I longed to gaze upon her familiar visage once more, the one prior to her proficiency in deceit. The Jessica, untouched by the art of deception. There she stood, illuminated under a strand of garden lights, chuckling into her wineglass, barefooted on a dock during late summer's twilight, her hand upon my torso, her lips near my ear. In that moment, I glimpsed love, authentic, raw, perhaps profound. Love without loyalty is not love. It's a stage performance. It's a hidden door poised to open. I instructed the action. Proceed with the filing, I declared. My voice remained unshaken. I desired a neat division, no spectacle. Yet, I would not depart empty-handed. I possess evidence. The lawyer remained composed and businesslike. He advised we'd initiate with a notice of intent to separate. He promised to prepare the initial set of documents by day's end. He suggested I stay put for now. No communication with her unless it was written. I concurred. At 11:16 a.m., Jessica texted me, "Where are you?" It wasn't humorous. I chose not to respond. At 12:03, the screen lit up as she called. Her name remained Jess, unaltered. I let it ring repeatedly. She called back over and over again. The barrage of texts followed suit. "Mark, what's happening? Did you genuinely leave? Can you grow up and converse with me? You're acting irrationally." The last one, "Call me tomorrow." She didn't comprehend that I had already destroyed the bridge she was attempting to retrace. By 2 p.m., an email from the lawyer arrived, initiating the process. The gears were in motion. No more feigning, no more slow-acting venom behind closed doors. However, something unexpected transpired at 3:47 p.m. A knock on my hotel door echoed, not from room service, but Jessica. I stood still as the sound reverberated, hearing her knocks twice more, followed by silence. I didn't need to look through the peephole. I recognized the unique weight behind it, a burden brought forth by betrayal. For a brief moment, I considered ignoring her, letting her knock until she desisted, returned home, and sat with the silence she instigated. Yet, something within me altered. It wasn't a question of curiosity or restraint. I yearned to observe the new Jessica standing at the door now that the performance was concluded and the crowd had departed. I swung it open. She was there in black leggings, a denim jacket draped over a tank top, her sunglasses perched on her head. Stripped of makeup, her eyes were swollen, possibly from weeping, possibly from lack of sleep. Her lips were pressed into a tight line, yet her posture conveyed everything, defiant, unrepentant. "Ah, so this is where you've been hiding," she said, as if we were longtime roommates engaged in a game of tag. I made way without uttering a word. She entered with the air of ownership. The door clicked shut behind her. The space between us filled with tension. She rotated to confront me, her arms folded across her chest. "You truly departed without attempting to converse with me?" "I did," I responded curtly. "But you weren't paying attention." "That's not fair." She advanced nearer, her tone becoming softer. "Mark, you caught me off guard. I assumed you were at the gym or getting coffee, but instead, I got ghosted, much like a fleeting casual encounter. It was almost comical. You wanted to discuss being ghosted." "For months, you've been vanishing," I stated. "The only difference is that this time, my presence wasn't absent." She winced, but quickly composed herself. "So is this it? You're going to discard a decade-long relationship because of a mistake? A mistake is stumbling over words, for missing a birthday. This was premeditated, Jessica. You concealed it. You had alternatives, and you consistently chose him." Her countenance contorted. It wasn't a look of guilt, but rather anger. "I was seeking something, Mark. I was lonely. I was weary of pleading for your attention. You think this was effortless for me?" "You didn't plead," I countered, moving closer to her now. "You deceived. You lied with words, expressions, actions. You created a secondary life and attempted to keep one foot in this one to avoid losing the safety net." She swallowed heavily. The issue wasn't solely about him. It involved me as well. I felt acknowledged once more. I nodded in agreement. "And now I perceive you too, entirely." It was then that the facade broke. Her tone grew sharp. "So, are you flawless? Do you believe you never erred? Did you not weep nights on end while engrossed in your work, barely acknowledging me? That's not an excuse. It's a setup. You opted not to disclose your unhappiness. Instead, you sought validation from another man, rather than your spouse. You don't have the right to rewrite that." Jessica retreated as if struck. However, there were no tears, no emotional outburst, just that same coldness resurfacing. She exhaled sharply. "Very well. If you want a divorce, let's proceed. But don't expect me to portray the antagonist in your tragic narrative. You've already assumed that role." There was an extended silence, a profound, serene one. Then she surveyed the room, offering a wry half-laugh. "Impressive. Budget hotel furniture and a microwave. Quite the setup." "So, that's what freedom appears to be?" I replied, collecting my key card from the nightstand. "Instead, that's what self-respect is demonstrating." She paused and departed without uttering another word. I chose not to observe her departure. I didn't have to. In precisely 36 hours, the storm arrived. Following Jessica's departure from the hotel room, I assumed that was the end. I firmly believed that moment represented the concluding blow, the complete break, the cutting of 10 years into a single, painful, indelible hour. However, Jessica wasn't one for a tranquil exit. The following day, I received a call from our shared bank. "Hello, Mr. Redmond. We've noticed some uncommon activity on your account." Unusual was an understatement. Jessica had moved $12,000 from our savings to a newly opened checking account in her name. Although not yet illegal, the action was premeditated, swift, and calculated. I suspected she'd been planning it for some time. I remained composed. I contacted my attorney, informed him about the situation, and he submitted a motion to temporarily halt non-essential joint accounts until our divorce agreement was finalized. My spouse had initiated the financial conflict first. In response, I took a legal action second. However, the matter didn't end there. That night, I received a message from my mother. "Mark, why is Jessica accusing you of abandoning her?" A text followed from my sister. "Didn't you leave without saying anything? She seems to be in distress." Then came a message from my friend Tony. "Bro, she claims you've been emotionally cheating for a year?" "That's true." I stared at the screen, one accusation after another, one distorted narrative followed by another. She was constructing her image anew, using me as the crumbling base. The woman who had smirked in my hotel room, who referred to me as invisible and exited triumphantly, was now portraying herself as a victim. She launched a full-scale damage control campaign. Posts on social media conceal their true intentions. Often the one you least expect can inflict the most pain. Photos of her laughing with friends, a glass of wine in hand, accompanied by the caption, "Healing isn't straightforward, but it's genuine." She was constructing an image, and constructing my downfall, but I didn't react. I didn't respond. I didn't defend. Instead, I chronicled. Each message, each post, each account withdrawal, each date, each deception, in silence, meticulously, allowing her to craft her narrative publicly while I prepared my case in court. Then arrived the letter. 3 pages long, handwritten, slipped to the hotel front desk in a cream envelope with my name and cursive script on the front. Within was her last effort to rewrite our history with ink. It began with remorse. "You were my universe once." Then rationalization. "You disappeared from my life, Mark. I had to find a way to live." Then manipulation. "If you proceed with this, remember it will devastate me. Blake is no longer part of my life." That final sentence hung there like a jest. Instead of believing she destroyed our marriage for an inconsequential person, what truly astonished me wasn't her deceit. It was the name on the letter. She didn't sign it as Jessica. Instead, she signed it as the woman you abandoned. There was no apology, no acceptance of responsibility, only accusations and elegant handwriting. I chose not to respond. Instead, I forwarded the letter to my attorney, and I vacated the hotel room, not returning to our shared home. That place no longer belonged to me. I rented a temporary downtown apartment. No personal mementos, no framed pictures, no joint closets, just 4 bare walls and a key that only opened for me. I didn't seek tranquility. I anticipated revenge, disturbance, perhaps even insincere tears meant for her audience. But what Jessica did next was not just another blow. It was a calculated attack aimed to humiliate, not merely hurt. 2 weeks following the delivery of the letter, after the prolonged silence, legal paperwork, and my discreet relocation to the downtown apartment, I was tagged in a Facebook post by none other than Blake Anders. His personal account showcased a public post deliberately, featuring a photo of him with Jessica, both laughing. Her legs were tucked beneath her like a schoolgirl, his arm around her waist. The scene was set against what appeared to be their gym's rooftop patio, with wine glasses in sight. The caption read, "Sometimes you don't find your person until you're truly honest with yourself." The comments were filled with congratulations from friends, some mutual acquaintances I barely recognize now. Their happiness for the couple was clear. "You two look amazing together. So happy for you both. You deserve this, and real love wins." However, that last comment. She wasn't just moving on, she rewrote the entire script. No longer the cheating spouse, but the courageous individual who chose herself, found love, and departed from an emotionally distant husband who didn't acknowledge her light. As for me, I became the unseen antagonist in her narrative, the gray area that no longer existed in her life. That same day, my lawyer delivered a draft proposal from Jessica's legal team. She sought the house, the furnishings, alimony for 5 years, and surprisingly demanded half of my business's passive income, claiming emotional involvement in my achievements. As I silently read through the document, my clenched jaw produced a grating sound from the movement of my molars. She was no longer feigning. She intended to seize what she had not legitimately acquired, and do so with a smile. I contacted my attorney. I stated clearly that there would be no negotiations. We were going on the offensive, uncovering every receipt, message, timestamp. I wanted this case to be meticulously documented. He concurred. However, despite the legal machinery moving forward, what troubled me was not the monetary aspect or the deceit. It was how swiftly someone I held dear could transform into a stranger. The same woman who used to sleep on my chest after late-night movies, who would steal my fries when she claimed not to be hungry, and who once wept in the car during our second anniversary, saying she didn't deserve that much love. She posted pictures as if I never existed, hinting at a premeditated departure she may have been rehearsing for months, perhaps longer. This wasn't an impulsive betrayal, but one carefully planned. I was the denouement in her old storyline, and Blake was her grand finale. The courtroom lacked the dramatic flair of movies. There were no outbursts, no gavel slams, and no one shouted "objection" as if we were in a legal thriller. Instead, it was cold, sterile, clinical. The room was beige with uncomfortable benches that made even the sturdiest backache after 20 minutes. Jessica sat opposite me at the petitioner's table, impeccably composed. Her hair was neatly pinned back, she wore a black dress, and her makeup was subtle, the quintessential grieving wife image, crafted with precision. Her lawyer, a tall man in a navy suit who exuded the practiced smirk of someone who'd been through this countless times, sat beside her flipping through his notes as if we were discussing parking violations, not the dissolution of a decade-long marriage. I was the one left on the witness stand. I donned a navy suit with no tie, avoiding a formal appearance. I aimed to look organized, yet not as if in court. The magistrate posed queries. My counsel responded, followed by Jessica's. Then came the financial declarations, including joint accounts, properties, and assets. Subsequently, Jessica's legal team referred to her non-financial contributions. Their implication was that she had invested emotionally into my business, stayed up late for its growth, made sacrifices. They sought a share of the company's worth based on these contributions. That's when I handed over the USB drive, emails, calendars, and a spreadsheet comparing every weekend claimed to be working late during the past 9 months with gym logs, GPS data, and call records from her secondary phone number. It wasn't merely about exposing the affair, it was about invalidating the claim of contribution. Jessica didn't construct my business, she didn't sustain it. Her absence from the scene predates Blake's arrival. In court, her expression scarcely altered as the evidence was presented. A mere tensed jaw and a sluggish blink betrayed her unease. Beneath her composed exterior, I sensed she hadn't anticipated a trail of documents. Her attorney leaned close to murmur something, and her lips flattened in response. Then began the cross-examination. My lawyer approached cautiously, respectfully, directly. "Mrs. Redmond, during the dates you mentioned, you claimed to be working nights on campaigns. You concur with that statement?" She nodded. "Yes. And can you clarify why your location data suggests you were at 428 Lincoln Avenue, Mr. Anders's address, during those evenings?" She hesitated, then faltered. "I was visiting a friend, a frequent visitation, multiple times a week for 3 months." Her reply was withheld. Silence. The judge slightly tilted his head. "Then would you view these visits as a marital contribution to the defendant's company?" Her attorney objected, but the objection was overruled. She remained silent, her jaw tightening once more. Unraveling she was. The picture, the dialogue, the artful portrayal of her as the wronged party, resonating like an overexposed photograph. We paused for lunch. As Jessica walked past me in the corridor, her eyes were icy, lips tightened. Then she murmured, just audible enough for me to hear, "You think this gives you an upper hand over me?" I remained unmoved. "No," I replied. "It merely gives me liberty." She looked at me for a moment, something flashing in her eyes. Perhaps anger, possibly regret, maybe just the recognition that the story was slipping away from her like sand. She left without uttering another word. In the afternoon, the judge dismissed her plea for a share of my business. He ordered the property to be sold and the profits divided. No spousal maintenance, no alimony. The courtroom cleared as if nothing had occurred. Jessica avoided looking at me again before she departed through those double doors in quietness. I watched her leave without a sound. I didn't wish for her departure. Rather, it served as a grim reminder that even the most captivating deceptions eventually lose their appeal and are abandoned. The initial dawn that found me solitary in the novel apartment was like standing in the heart of an abandoned cathedral, where whispers of something holy lingered but no divine presence remained. Bare walls devoid of images or adornments echoed the constant hum of the refrigerator and occasional pipe groans. I brewed coffee in silence, with no second mug ready on the counter, nor a casual morning kiss from someone hastily exiting. Yet, there was an odd comfort in this void, the lack of pretense, I no longer scrutinized her social media, had deleted Blake, silenced mutual contacts, and extricated myself from shared narratives. The courtroom hadn't provided closure, but it had granted me space, a more precious asset than I had imagined. The world kept turning, my business thrived, and my inbox overflowed. Life didn't crumble. Instead, it stopped feigning. Occasionally, instances struck painfully. For instance, when our old home appeared on Zillow, the very room where we danced together was now adorned with artificial plants and another's furnishings. The estate description omitted details like the faint crack in the kitchen tile from her broken wine glass during our third argument, or the section of wall we painted together in the dead of night, filled with laughter. Instead, it spoke only of square footage and natural light. I didn't weep, yet something within me constricted, like a string being tugged behind my ribs. Then, several days later, I encountered Laura, the very same Laura who was Jessica's supposed alibi throughout the ordeal. She hesitated near the 4th Street bookstore, looking unsure if she should approach. "Hello," she said. "Mark?" "Laura." I nodded, maintaining an even tone. She paused, then approached me. All I desired was to confess that I didn't know the full story. True, she shared some facts, but not every detail. I learned about Blake later on. I remained silent as she swore me to secrecy. She claimed it was temporary, needing space to ponder. But where exactly was she contemplating? In his bed or the back of his car? I inquired. It wasn't malicious, just tidy. Laura sighed. "I'm sorry. I know it doesn't carry much weight now, but I should have spoken up." Instead, I nodded once more. We each make our decisions. Our paths diverged without further words. That night, I tackled the last unopened box I had shunned since moving out. Inside were anniversary cards, cinema tickets, trinkets from past travels, relics of a life that once felt unchanging. I didn't destroy them or discard them. Instead, I repacked them, closed the container, and pushed it beneath the bed. Not because I desired to keep them, but because I wasn't prepared to feign they never existed. Healing isn't a montage of dramatic scenes. It's not a fresh romance mending past wounds. It's a quiet Tuesday evening when you don't conjure her name while brushing your teeth. A solitary dinner where there was no compulsion to send a message about my meal. A tranquil Sunday with silence being merely quietness rather than a penalty. I wasn't completely healed, but I had stopped bleeding. The relationship didn't conclude in flames. It fizzled out into apathy. Several months later, by chance, I ran into Jessica on a downtown street fair. A secondhand bookstall was where I spotted her, with a smile playing at the corners of her lips due to something Blake said. He stood beside her, wearing his usual smug expression, as if he had just concluded a reality TV audition. She didn't notice me then, or if she did, she chose not to show it. I watched her for exactly 3 seconds before turning back to the books. There was no anger, no sorrow, no pang of remorse, just a composed breath filling my lungs. A quiet whisper inside my head affirmed, "You survived." I didn't inform anyone about it. No text message was sent, no diary entry was written. In time, Jessica ceased being the antagonist of my narrative. Instead, she became a chapter that had been conclusively ended. The ensuing months did not instantly mend things, but they made them authentic. I embarked on a solo weekend trip for the first time in years, resumed cooking, and began jogging again. I re-established my client base. I attended therapy, not due to being damaged, but to shed unnecessary burdens. Gradually, bit by bit, I resumed prioritizing myself once more. I ceased questioning how she could deceive so skillfully. I stopped seeking significance in every minor act of deceit. I discontinued reliving the evening when she said, "I'll call you tomorrow," as if it were a missing piece of a puzzle. For the record, here's an unpopular truth. Not all betrayals are preceded by signs. Not every deceiver stammers. Some betrayals are unassuming, silent, and cloaked in smiles. Yet that doesn't make you foolish. It makes you human. We trust because we feel love. We believe because we elect to. When trust is shattered, it's not a reflection of your weakness, but their pattern. Here's my counsel. If a suspicion gnaws at you, don't let it consume your life. If you find yourself suppressing your light to dodge imperfections, shine brightly regardless. If they promise to call tomorrow and your intuition alters, heed that feeling. And if you decide to depart, walk decisively. Don't linger for unspoken apologies. Don't anticipate them transforming into the person they feigned to be. Don't entrust them with the authority to redefine your worth. Remember, healing isn't dramatic. It resides in the tranquil moments like this one. Coffee cradled, sunlight gracing the floor, no lingering specter within my heart. Jessica is another's burden now. I am no longer a dupe. At last, after all that has passed, I am liberated.